Thank you, John. Last week, the United States and ROK Defense Secretary meeting in South Korea, you know that Secretary Austin.
Yes, I was there.
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah. So, you makes me interrupt. Secretary Austin noticed that in the Pacific region is a top priority for the U.S. Department of Defense.
Yeah.
And South Korea is aware that the United States Indo-Pacific strategy is primarily aimed at the containing China. That's South Korea said that. So, therefore, South Korea Moon Jae-in government is still reluctant to join in the Pacific and the Quad consensus of China. What is your comment?
So there's a lot there. I mean, first of all, our approach to the Indo-Pacific is not about containing China or any other nation. It is about, frankly, dealing with the continued challenges to a free and open Indo-Pacific that we see mounted by China. The coercion of their neighbors, economic aggressiveness, as well as maritime aggressiveness, particularly in the South China Sea. So there's a lot of national security interests at play in the Indo-Pacific. China is not the only one. Certainly it is as the Secretary said, a pacing challenge for this department, and significant. And he had the opportunity to talk about the pacing challenge of China when he was in Seoul for his second visit. And I think, and I won't speak for Minister Suh, but the minister recognized and sees those challenges for themselves. They see that as well. But primarily, the discussion in Seoul was about the threat posed by North Korea and threats to stability and security on the Korean Peninsula, and a chance for the Secretary to reiterate our ironclad commitment to our alliance with the ROK and to our shared national security interests there on the peninsula, to making sure that we continue to work towards the goal of a denuclearized peninsula. That was the focus. Now, I won't speak for South Korean leaders and how they view the region and what priorities they're putting on their own peace and security. That's for them to speak to. But I can tell you that the Secretary left Seoul more confident than ever that this alliance was in a very good place, and that we were both uniformly committed to making it stronger going forward. Okay.
One more, regarding the U.S. and South Korea agreed strategic, plan, new strategic plan on this, and backlash from North Korea and China is expected. China is more pressure to South Korea. It's significant right now, the reaction to what we have previously. So what is your comment for this? If China is going to diplomatically pressure to South Korea, how did you respond on this?
Well, look, a couple of things. We're not making countries choose between the United States and China, and we understand that South Korea has a bilateral relationship with China. We respect that. I mean, they're practically neighbors. In all respects, they actually are. And so we understand that, and they're not the only Indo-Pacific nation that has a bilateral relationship with China that is different than the one that we have, and we respect that. What we continue to see China do with nations throughout the region is to coerce and intimidate, to try to move them to positions of policy and orientation that are more in keeping with China's view of what the region ought to look like and be like than what most of the international community feels. And certainly our concerns in the United States is that a lot of what China's trying to achieve in the region is actually inimical to what we believe is in our national security interest, and certainly in the national security interests of our allies and partners. I would remind you, 5 of our 7 treaty alliances are in that region, and we take those commitments very seriously. Again, I'll let the South Koreans speak for their bilateral relations. It's a sovereign country, and they should do that. But we are not unmindful of the kinds of coerciveness and intimidation that China continues to perpetuate throughout the region.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Carla.
Hi, thank you. 2 different topics, if I may. First, I'm sure you've seen the Wall Street Journal report about China's attempt to seek a military base in Equatorial Guinea. Can you confirm that, that you've seen evidence that they are trying to establish a base there?
What I would just tell you as part of our normal diplomacy to address maritime security issues there in that region, we have made clear, the administration has made clear, not the Department of Defense necessarily, to the leaders of Equatorial Guinea that certain potential steps involving the PRC and the PRC's activities there would raise national security concerns for us. And we've been, the administration has been clear about that.
When you say national security concerns, can you help our audience understand what some of those may entail?
Well, look, again, China's, just like we were talking about in Indo-Pacific, in Africa, they continue to try to coerce behavior out of many African nations and try to intimidate, use economic leverage to seek their own national security goals there, which do not contribute in the end run, we don't believe, to the betterment of security and stability there and for the interests of many of these African nations. Now, obviously, look, these leaders these are sovereign nations, and we respect that they will have bilateral relations of their own. That's the way the system works. But what we have seen China try to do there and elsewhere around the world is establish a foothold that they could use, that could advance their own military goals. And I think that's the real crux of the issue. I really don't think I want to get any deeper than that.